Welcome to Viewpoints, brought to you by Equiture, where public safety meets cutting edge innovation. I'm Cherie Bartram, your host. We're not just a software and training company, we're an international leader that's revolutionizing how first responders work, learn, and stay safe. From AI powered solutions that are transforming dispatch centers to next generation tools built by people who understand your world, we're creating future of public safety technology. Whether you're a longtime listener or just discovering us, you're in the right place. We bring you monthly podcasts and experts tackling real issues, webinars that keep you ahead of the curve, and training that actually makes a difference. Let's dive in. I'm really honored to be able to welcome back to our show Kris Inman. Kris has been a prior guest on both our podcasts and our webinars, and he has a wide variety of experience. He brings over 30 years of 911 experience to his training, speaking, and instruction as a director of program development for the Healthy Dispatcher. A noted presenter, Kris has delivered standout educational sessions, keynotes, motivational talks, and yoga instructions to dispatchers across the country. He has also served as an adjunct professor, teaching popular classes in communication and public safety leadership to both Durham University and Missouri State University, where he was honored with a University Teaching Award in 2021. Prior to joining the Healthy Dispatcher, Kris served for 28 years in Springfield, Greene County, Missouri, 911, working his way up from call taker to dispatcher to CTO, supervisor, training manager, and director. He holds a Master of Arts in Communication, a Bachelor of Science in Electronic Media from Missouri State University. He is also a registered yoga instructor. And there's one last thing that I want to touch on that I know I've touched on before when I've introduced him, because it holds a special place for me personally. Kris is a MS activist with the Multiple Sclerosis Society, uh, and has been an instrumental as a leader in MS campaigns for the city of Springfield. Kris, I want to thank you for your contributions to 911 profession, as well as the health and healing of others.
Cherie, what an honor it is to be back here with you. I always think when I hear that introduction, number one, when you've been around for a long time, it seems like that introduction just grows and grows and grows because you just accrue more and more experience. And at a certain point, if you've got limited time, the introduction is the podcast. So good night, everybody. It's been great. Really appreciate seeing you, Cherie. No, in all seriousness, great to be back here. Love what you do. Love this podcast. And to be with you, get to visit for an hour is always a real joy.
Well, I've mentioned just a plethora of topics that Kris is well versed in. So our audience may be wondering, what are we going to be discussing today? So we do have a treat for you. We are going to talk about dispatchers who saved us, the unsung heroes who impacted our career behind the scenes. Many of these unsung heroes may not even know that they had an impact on us. So we invite you, our audience, to sit back and enjoy and reflect on this podcast. Who impacted your career? There may be names that come to mind more than you realized. That's one of the big reasons I'm really glad that you brought this topic up, Kris, because I think that sometimes we know and acknowledge those who made a difference, and sometimes we ourselves may miss that acknowledgement. So let's jump right in. Can you tell us about a dispatcher or someone in the PSAP world who changed the path of your career without even realizing they did it?
Yeah, and I love this topic. This is such an important topic, I think, for all of us. And when I've talked to dispatchers throughout the country and asked this question or a version of this question, I just see them light up because everybody in this profession has somebody at some point, and it's typically early on during the training hell, which it can be. I still have PTSD from my own training, so much so that I can barely say PTSD as I just demonstrated. But it's usually when you can't see in yourself the ability to even think you can do this job. It's typically then when your person, as I refer to them, sees something in you that you can't see. and they lift you up in ways that you don't even know you need. So when I started, it was 1994, kind of pre-cell phone, sort of kind of pre-internet. It's weird to I'm horse and buggy on the way to work kind of deal. There was water out in the outhouse, this sort of thing. I was pretty cocky, young kid, pretty cocky, had never been in a job that I couldn't do well immediately before, which is an experience that many of us in 911 go through. And I learned pretty quickly that I was going to be humbled by this job that I thought I could do, and I really couldn't well at all. But there was a guy early on, supervisor, who just stepped into the void and who knew what I needed when I needed it, who had a tremendous sense of humor and displayed it often, who would take my mind away from subject matter that was driving me crazy when he sensed that that's what I needed, who gave me tough love when tough love is the thing that I needed. But he always was there in moments where I was ready to run out the door. And he was able to see that and sense that. And he was able to step into that moment and just change things for me. To give you an idea of the great humor that this guy had and still has, we're still very close to this day. He has a prosthetic leg. And oftentimes when new folks were in the room, he would fake anger and stab a fork into his leg as if it were accidental, much to the horror of new people. And we'd all die laughing. And later the new people would when they realized what was going on. Just a wicked dispatch sense of humor, which that is clearly somewhat inappropriate. And that's dispatcher humor for you. But a guy who deeply cared in a way that you could feel without saying it. And he changed the trajectory of my entire career. I tell people all the time, were it not for this supervisor who became a dear, dear friend to me, I wouldn't be sitting here with you, Cherie. I wouldn't certainly be working for the Healthy Dispatcher and doing a job that I absolutely love. I would never have been a director. Frankly, I'm not sure I would have ever gotten through training. So he changed my life fundamentally. And I will never, ever, ever be able to thank him enough for doing that. And I hope that that story makes the folks who are listening think to themselves, oh, yeah, I had that person too, because we all kind of did.
So what made you, I mean, besides with him, is he the one who made you want to explore this topic of unsung heroes in dispatching? Um, or was there something about our profession that made those quiet impacts more common that just made you want to bring it out?
A kind of a combination of both. I feel like much of what I do is a tribute to him. And he's like most folks who do that sort of thing. They don't mean to do it. It's not performative. They're not following any script. They're just doing what they think is the right thing to do because they see something in you. And when I have thanked him over the years, and I have many, many times, he's always just kind of taken aback by it. He's thankful. He thanks me for that, but he's like, I didn't really try to do anything, Kris. I just saw something in you. You had a great sense of humor. Your hair was a little squirrely, but it was post 80s. I figured you'd work your way out of that, and thank God I did. So he just so fundamentally changed my life. And I think it's important because of that to continually bring this up and to remind folks who sometimes get lost in that little bubble that we get lost in the dispatch center. If you're in training, you can't see outside your own bubble. You can't see past the hour that you're in. If you're a veteran dispatcher, sometimes you just get so used to the minutia of the everyday and the 12 and 14 and 16-hour shifts, so you don't even see what it is you're doing until much, much later when you're able to look back with the clarity that hindsight provides and really get a sense of, oh my gosh, look what I was doing then, and look how important this person was to me. And I never even said anything to him. So I continue to use conversations like this one and conversations that I have about your person with dispatchers as an opportunity to let them know, to let that person know. Thank them and notice what it is they're doing for you in real time so you don't have to spend later years in tribute to them. So I told him this morning, by the way, this particular supervisor, we're great friends, he's also retired. I said, hey, I'm doing a podcast, going to talk about you all day. And there was kind of a pause, and he's just super humble and modest about it. And he said, are you going to tell him about my leg? So of course that had to come up. But yeah, it's because of him and because of the importance of that person, and frankly, the ease with which other dispatchers can step up and be that person for people in desperate need of it, and maybe prolong a career that wouldn't be that long without just the tiniest little bit of action to step up and help them see something in themselves that you see.
Well, for you, did you realize that he had saved your career right away? Was it immediate, or did it dawn on you later as you looked back?
Well, I think like so much, it was later. I just knew I enjoyed being with him. I knew that when he was at work and in charge and I came to work on that shift, that it was going to be a great night because he was there. It was just kind of you clock the fact that that person just makes work better. I don't know that in my 20s, early on in my career, I was necessarily cognizant of a whole lot of anything about what was going on. I just felt like for the first 2 or 3 years, I was just hanging on for dear life. And as we all know in dispatch, unless you are a wonder kid who pick it up immediately, and I do run into those folks from time to time, it generally takes a few years until you're sitting there at the console and you're taking a deep breath. It's a busy Saturday night in the summer. You got more cops than you can possibly handle on the radio. You got calls stacked up, and only 5 of those cops can you actually dispatch to those calls. The rest of them are running secret squirrel missions that will require you to run plates and people all night, but you can't dispatch him on any call. This is catharsis for me, by the way. So thank you for this almost psychiatrist sit down that I'm having. But you get so lost in all of that that you don't take the time and you don't really have the wherewithal to understand that you're sitting there and starting to feel comfort during that situation I just described for the very, very first time, in no small part because of that person who has stepped in for you and lifted you up to show you you can do a damn near impossible job. And let's be honest, dispatch is a nearly impossible job to A, do it all, and B, to get good at, say nothing of getting comfortable with it. So while some people, I suppose, can do that and get there on their own, it's so much easier when you got somebody's hand on your back. And I always had his. So, no, in the moment, I was not truly aware of it. And then as I started getting older and putting years behind me, and I had the benefit of hindsight, a track record I could look back to with that perfect clarity that hindsight provides, it was abundantly clear that every single accomplishment I'd had in the center came because this guy stepped up for me and became a great friend to me, a great supporter of me, a great sense of humor, of understanding for me when I needed it. And that was responsible for everything. So it took a bit, as it does for most of us. And that's why I hope that this podcast will be that little kicker for some folks who were in that bubble as I was. And maybe they'll stop for just a second and say, oh, you know what? I should go thank so and so, because as I think about it, as I listen to the ramblings of this guy, yeah, that's kind of my person too. I'm in that situation as well. And while these people don't require thanks, they don't do it for thanks, it's kind of nice for them to know the difference they're making with you. And I encourage people to do that.
And I was just thinking about that too, Kris, as you were talking. I was thinking how many people are listening to this and thinking, oh, well, yes, there was that person. Uh, That person was there for me. Wow, they did make me want to come into work. I I probably would have quit if it hadn't
Mm.
been for them. So I thank you for being here and pointing out, that we had somebody who saved our career. And maybe we didn't even know it, let alone them.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I do run into that sometimes. I'll be doing sessions or classes around the country, and I'll ask that question: do you have a person in your career that saved it, that showed you you could do it when you were certain you couldn't? And sometimes they'll point to the person beside them, which is always a great kick. And that person is always genuinely surprised, humble about it, and kind of mystified. I've had a couple shed tears when they find that out, and that's really the beauty of the person that we're talking about today. Is it's not a performance, it's not a role that they aspire to. They do it, it comes from their heart. They do it because they see it in you, and it's just a natural thing for them to do. It's not in their job description, it's not in a standard operating procedure. They're just kind and good and funny, and they want to help you be better. And that's hopefully, again, a lot of light bulbs popping up over a lot of heads today because somebody's coming to mind as we say that.
I, and I just want to point out that so many people get into this line of work because they say, I want to make a difference. I want to help people. Uh, Most people don't think about the person that they want to help as the being someone who's sitting next to them.
Yeah.
So I really like that I like that we're talking about this. And for like the dispatchers listening who might be struggling right now, what did your unsung hero teach you about resilience? I mean, here you are working at the Healthy Dispatcher. Um, what did he talk to you or teach you just through actions and words? Teach you about resilience, surviving in the job? Did he teach you with words or did you model after him?
That's it, the latter for sure. He modeled that resilience for me. I don't know that resilience is something that we can label and teach per se. I've been in classes about resilience. I do classes about resilience. It's a great and important topic for all of us in dispatch to be sure, but I think for most of us, there's somebody that we admire, and whether we are doing it subconsciously or openly, we sort of become who we see them being because of our admiration for them. And that was certainly the case for him. Did he have his moments where he lost his cool? Yes. Generally, we would laugh at that. And sometimes he understood that he served that purpose. But he always sailed through these horrible dispatch storms with a great sense of fun and humor, even when things were bleak, even when we got hit with an ice storm, for example, in 2008. I'm in Southwest Missouri and we had a crippling ice storm. It's historic. It just shut everything down. And we knew it was coming. We were understaffed. We didn't have anywhere near the staff to handle it. We knew that that was going to happen. And I'll be darned if, despite all of that, I didn't have some of the most fun I've ever had at work. And I tie that to his actions, to his looseness and his sense of, hey, you know what? If we can't handle this, we can't handle this. Well, let's just do what we can and let that be enough. Now, I'll put a football game on TV. We'll keep the sound down, at least until we lose power. Let's watch a little ball while we do. I mean, he just had the perfect sense of when to show us who we needed to be without saying to us, this is who you need to be. We have an ice storm coming in. Everybody buck up. It was never like that. It was loose. It was fun, but it was also professional. And we took great pride in what we did because he did. So he could turn around and tease you a little bit or turn around and do some leg humor, which is what I'm going to refer to it from this point on as, but then turn right back around and just do extraordinary things on the phones or on the radio. And he was a supervisor. So he wasn't supposed to give breaks. We had a designated break person. People do it differently in different centers, but he would always say to people, no, 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 sit down. I'll go grab this break. So he kept himself, involved in the dispatching and the call taking and would plug in for people as needed, even when that wasn't the protocol. It was just little things like that where he just constantly modeled for me without saying so. This is how you handle it. This is how you head into a storm. This is how you deal with being so woefully understaffed that we're all going to have to work much longer today than we thought we needed to. And I just caught myself over time, especially as I got promoted up the ladder, thinking of his examples when certain things would cross my desk or certain issues would come up. I would think to myself almost reflexively, well, how would Kris have handled it? And I would do what he did. So yeah, he modeled that behavior. And if you ask him today, so what was your thought process in modeling that? He'd be like, I don't know what that means. I was just being me. And that kind of makes it magical too. And again, I hope
Right.
this is ringing bells out there because you're a person, I suspect, same way. They didn't have any plan to model it. That's just who they were. And that's what made them great.
So when you told him what he meant to you, how he had saved your career, how you model after him, what you just now, what would Kris do? What did he say? What was that conversation like?
It was emotional, actually. And he and I were not always super emotional like that with each other. We're dudes. Come on, we're guys. Got no time for that. But he was very emotional about it and extraordinarily humbled by it. And it's come to pass over time. And he could be in denial about it and be super humble about it all he wants, but it's come to pass over time. So many people who worked for and with him have told him the same things, often just gushing forth with how thankful we are for him and just for his entire time in the center. So many people have come to him with similar uh, thoughts and just pouring out how they felt about him that he can no longer deny it. So he's just super, super touched by it and a little surprised, as people again like that always are. They're always a little bit surprised, these leaders Some of them don't have a title. He did, but some don't have a title and they don't aspire to that, but we follow them. So I think I think it's added a dimension to his career. And again, he's retired. But as he's looked back at it, sometimes you look back at a career and you think of the tougher moments. But this, sort of feel like rounded out and verified for him the role that he played and gives him a sense of pride about it that goes well beyond just the duty at the console. So, and I just recently had a social media post in response to something we posted at the Healthy Dispatcher about who your person was. And once again, I paid tribute to him and he responded with a big emotional paragraph about how touched he is by that. So that's why I encourage people, go tell your person what they mean to you. It's going to be, they're going to be humble about it. They're not doing it because they're expecting that from you, but gosh, it just means so much to them. And it's every time I talk to him, I bring this up. He's going to listen to this. And it's a really great opportunity to just thank somebody so much for doing so much for so many for so long that sometimes they don't even realize people think. So let them know, get it out there. It's worth it.
I agree. I'm just, and I know this is the dispatchers who saved us and they don't even know it. I would say even as a director, because I was also a director like you, Kris. I would say even as a director, there are dispatchers out there that worked for us that, I could go into work and there was a dispatcher that worked for me. I'll call him Jim. And when he was working, life was good. He was quiet. He had that solid sense to him. He didn't talk much around. He didn't get involved in the gossip and the drama, but man, he was there. And he impacted so many people, including the supervisors and, the leadership of that center. Uh, I would venture to say, people could go to him. He's since retired, but uh, like if you have, as a leader, you have a dispatcher like that in your center, you can go to him and say, wow, you really make a difference. And I know, you might have to be careful. Oh, you have a favorite, but um, it doesn't have to be a peer that, can save you in your career, the path of your career.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Cherie. I'm glad you brought that up because I hope this resonates with leaders who are listening. One of the great regrets I have as a director and as a leader in my center is I didn't go to those people enough and express my appreciation to them. The folks who aren't involved in any drama, the folks who you quietly sit at your desk and thank the sweet, sweet Lord above for because they
Right.
show up, they do the job, they have a good sense of humor that affects everybody around them. You never see their name come across your desk in some negative way, and you just are deeply thankful for them. And my sad oversight, you get so, again, talking about being in your own bubble as a director was, they know how I feel. Well, maybe they don't. And maybe they shouldn't. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I want to reach out to leaders who are listening today and encourage you. You have to make a grand production about it. You have to get 76 trombones in the hit parade, but just go out to these people or send them an email or drop them a little note and just thank them. Thank them for showing up. Thank them for not being dramatic and just being who they are, because those are the people who are, in all likelihood, doing that for someone else, whether they have a title or not, that we're talking about today. So leadership has a role to play here, like you say, whether they immediately impact you or not. They're making your job easier every day, leaders. Go thank them. Trust me, they need it, they're worth it, and you should do it. That's the one thing. Now, there are a few things, but in hindsight, I wish I'd have done that a little better as a director.
Right. And that's why I brought it up. I wasn't super great at it either. I started out that way, but sometimes as directors, we kind of get beat up in the
Yeah,
process of doing our job, and I think we get lost in that sometimes. Some of
I agree.
us, not everyone, but
Yeah.
so why do you think these dispatchers often don't know the impact they've had? You said your person finally was in the position where he couldn't deny it. Do you think it's the nature of our work? Are we just bad at telling each other, bad at recognizing it within ourselves, or what do you think that is?
I think a lot of it, Sherry, is that these people don't realize that that's who they are because they're just being who they are by doing it. So again, they're not following some script It's not some performative thing where they're checking boxes. I need to help somebody today. I need to be somebody's person today. They just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So if I pick up my favorite pen and write with it, there's not necessarily intention there. It's just my favorite pen, and that's the way I like to write. And I think they think in similar terms. I help new people out because it's just something I do. So when you bring up something that's a reflex for other people, it can kind of be they can be taken aback by it. I really think about that. I don't remember that is kind of what we get back from them. So I think that's the biggest part of it is I think these folks who serve as our people in dispatch centers, they're just doing it because it's the right thing to do as far as they're concerned. But I think the other part of it is we aren't telling them enough. And again, we're dispatchers. There's no dispatcher that does the work we do for the spotlight or for the plaudits or for the awards. It's a good thing because you wouldn't last very long in this career if that's what you were in it for, because you seldom get that stuff. And in fact, in my experience, dispatchers who do get the spotlight and big, you're a hero type of stuff, they hate that. Don't want that. That you learn to shy away from that in our behind the scenes profession. So I think that too can kind of come into play when we're thinking about expressing this grand thanks to these folks. Like, I don't want to be awkward. I don't want to make them feel, but that's why I'm so glad we're having this discussion today. Because again, I'm not suggesting you go bananas when you go tell these folks and throw a hug on them that doesn't ever end. Although I did try to do that to him once and he did it. He was like, eh. But I am suggesting just quietly thank them, tell them. You may not know this, but when I was going through training and thinking about quitting every day, and I'd go home and think about how much I hated this and didn't think I could do it, you kept me coming back. And you'll see it resonate. You'll see it in their eyes. They may be mystified to a degree about what, but it means something. It's meaningful. So we need to do that more often.
And I would laughing, inside when you were talking about, the dispatchers don't like being recognized. I used to take, well, when I was working, I would take ice cream in every, during the summer months. Being in Michigan, you know, we don't generally want to eat ice cream. Well, some of us, when it's 20 degrees, but I would take ice cream in the summer months, and I had a dispatcher pull me aside and say, we appreciate that you're trying to recognize us with the ice cream, but it's not necessary. And I thought, but it is, so um, I guess my suggestion to those of you who are trying to recognize your person, even if they say, don't do that, don't let that stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, Cherie. Good point.
Have you ever found yourself that that you're a person for someone else, maybe without knowing it at the time? Has anyone ever come up to you and said, Kris, you've really made a difference in my life?
Yes. And it is all the things that I described how our persons reacted when they heard it from us. When I retired, one of the most touching things in a long several months during I'd announced my retirement and then went through the process. A lot of amazing things happened, and a lot of people said some very sweet things to me. But the thing that just floored me and still does, at the very end, they gave me an award that they called the Kris Inman Power of Positivity Award. They gave me the first one. It's hanging on the wall in the center, and now they give that annually to the person who, does the things that they feel like I did well, which was, make people feel a certain way and show kindness no matter what's going on, which I always aspired to. And to get that award was incredibly humbling. And I still, when I talk about it, I nearly tear up. So to get that sort of is those are my receipts, if you will. When I go around the country and teach and train and speak for the Healthy Dispatcher, probably my main focus is on how you treating other people, because it matters. It's the thing you can control in a profession in which you can control very little, but you can control that. And it doesn't take a whole lot of work. You're not going to work up a sweat. I'm not asking you to help me move here. I'm just asking you to do little things that people can feel. So to get that sort of in-game realization from my department and from so many people that I was that person for them is endlessly humbling and rewarding and amazing. And it's part and parcel of why I continue in this industry, because it means so much to me. And I've seen how even someone with as little initial talent for this as I had, knucklehead with a mullet when I started, with no business being ever good at this, became good at it, made it a career, largely because of people who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. I tried to live that for other people. Recognition that I did for some was huge, and it's the cycle we can all now repeat. And in an industry that is desperate to get people and keep people, why in God's name would we not do every little thing we can do to make the job a little more enjoyable, to make people laugh a little more than they might, to show people that when things get bleak, there's still a rich vein of humor and professionalism at the same time that we can enjoin together. And you can be the person to drive that car. So, long story short, if that's ever possible when you get me rolling, Cherie, yes, that has happened to me. It was deeply humbling and ultimately the greatest reward of anything I've ever gotten in this 911 career.
That's great. And I can easily see that you would deserve that.
That's very sweet of you to say, which is not to say I didn't have my moments where I was a royal ass. We all have those moments. So we get off on the wrong side of the bed. I always tell groups of folks when I tell them about this, I'm not suggesting that after you talk to Kris, we're going to link arm in arm and all sing Kumbaya, because I do understand you work with people that you would genuinely debate putting out if they were on fire. I get that, believe me. But you don't have to have it reciprocated to just be a decent person. And not everybody that you do that for is going to reciprocate it. Some of those folks you may not talk to much ever. They may not ever be someone that you're close to, but it still doesn't mean you can't make a difference in a moment that maybe they need it, with the understanding that maybe some folks are acting the way they are and it doesn't have anything to do with you. In fact, it probably doesn't. So these are important things to remember, and opens up a whole new can of worms that we're sort of straying off topic on. Apologies for that. But yeah, that's the name of the game. Just be a little nicer than you need to, and reach out without being asked maybe a couple more times than you're supposed to, and start setting that example, because it spreads. And we like to talk about negativity in dispatch, and Lord knows it can spread. But you know what? The opposite is true too.
That is true. So, um, how has recognizing the unsung heroes changed the way you approached training or mentoring newer dispatchers? Or maybe I could say it as, how do you how do you teach people to train or mentor dispatchers to be unsung heroes? Do you train them to do that, or do you say, just like what you were just saying, just be a decent person?
Model it. Model it. And make it be real. When people feel like you care, they know it. And when they know it, great things can happen. Is every dispatch center going to be a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade float when you're kind? No. But it matters. It ripples. So again, it can't be performative. You can't walk out onto a floor and say, today I am going to be kind. Dispatchers are some of the most intuitive people on earth. I can take any dispatcher, put them on a 911 call, and in 5 seconds, with 99.99% degree of accuracy, they can tell me if that caller is sane, sober, and serious. So you cannot fool a dispatcher. You can't do it. We develop this intuition about people and what they really mean and what they're really saying and what their vocal tone is. We know. We're human lie detectors. So if you are trying to fake that for other people, particularly dispatchers, they're going to pick up on that. They're going to know it's BS. And frankly, great way to insult a dispatcher is to try and fool them. So they're going to pick up on it, and they're going to kind of cross you out as far as somebody they can trust in the future. So when I talk to trainers and leaders and new dispatchers about how to be this person, there's no how to. It's a matter of, first of all, being aware. How you treating other people? How you talking to other people? Do you have RBF? Let people know that you have RBF if you're walking around like this all day. For those that can't see this, I'm making an ugly face. Be aware that your nonverbals communicate as loudly as the things that you say. Be aware of your impact. Just sitting in that seat on other people. Whether you embrace the fact that you have impact, whether you're even aware of it, doesn't matter. You do. And particularly you veteran dispatchers, you are impacting particularly the younger folks, the newer folks who are watching you, leaning into your example every single day. And what if what they see from you is you saying hey to people you don't talk to much, you checking on somebody during a break after a really rough call just to make sure they're okay. You don't overdo it, you just check on them. You sharing a joke or a conversation with somebody that you don't always talk to. Little things like that deeply matter. And if it comes from your heart and they feel it and they know you legitimately care about them, and man, if you're a leader and you legitimately care in a way people can feel, that's a game changer, Cherie. That's how you change the culture of your center one person at a time. There's no magic switch or magic pill we can take to make an ugly culture great suddenly, but little changes, slow as they may be, come from how you treat other people. So I just remind people that I talk to, that I teach, that you can make the biggest difference in your center just by the energy that you bring to it, the recognition of who you are for others, and if not embracing, at least being more intentional about the impact that you have on others. Because if you just say the heck with all of that, you're still going to have impact. So why not be a little more intentional about it? It just starts there. It's that simple.
So you just brought up a couple things that I was thinking about. You're talking about the role of formal and informal leadership. What role do those behind the scene influences play? The formal role and the informal official mentorship programs.
We at the Healthy Dispatcher, we do a formal mentorship program, and not everybody has one, and that's fine. You don't have to be labeled as a mentor to serve in that capacity, but I can tell you that statistics show across the board in all sorts of different professions that when you are being mentored, either formally or informally, it's not necessarily a chain of command thing, although a mentor can be in your chain of command, but someone that you can legitimately lean into, unload to, go through catharsis with, and really just talk to openly and honestly. And you feel like they care. You feel like they have your back. You feel like their purpose is to be there for you. It's fundamentally a game changer. It is a game changer across the board to know that that exists. If that mentorship comes from someone with a title, that's great. Mine happened to have a title. Some folks don't want to have a mentor with a title because they're in their chain of command, they don't feel like they can be as open and honest with them, and that's okay. It can be somebody without a title. We all have examples, speaking of examples that we have here today, of great leaders that we followed who never had a title, who, in fact, if you suggested to them, you were a great leader for me, they would be appalled by the word leader being attributed to them. I was no leader, but they were. And how? Through these mentorship principles, which ultimately is what we're talking about today. My supervisor, Kris, was a mentor to me without saying, Kris, I'm your mentor, without having a formal program, by doing the things that he did. And mentoring is modeling. It's showing somebody who doesn't quite know how to be a dispatcher how to be. Without saying, look at me, they just do the things that naturally draw you to them. So it doesn't take a title to make this kind of difference. People with titles who make this kind of difference, amazing. And I've got other examples of them to be certain. I worked for a director for many years who was the greatest leader I ever followed, and who, when you talk about getting teary, I get super teary talking about her because of the impact she made on my life. By the way, as I get older here and start approaching 60, I get teary more often. A Glade Christmas candle commercial I'm crying at the other night. I don't know what's happening here. It's a thing. Is this a getting older thing? And I'm not asking you that, Cherie, because I'm not suggesting you're getting older as I am, but it's a whole thing. And as I talk about these topics, I'm telling you right now, I'm having difficulty not springing forth tears. So in any event, I hope I answered your question, and I did so with dry eyes, at least for now.
You did. And the alternative to getting older, I just at this time find unacceptable. So it's okay.
And that's
you
what
know,
you get when you reach a certain age, and people are like, what's it like to be that age? And that's the answer. Well, it's what choice do I have? And this is the better choice, at least for now.
right, right. Well, what advice would you give to veteran dispatchers who might not realize they're someone's unsung hero right now?
Well, you don't have to become something that you're not. I always tell people, like, this isn't a role that you have to suddenly become. And there are a lot of introverts in dispatch, many more than I think most of us realize, which I get a kick out of. It's such a extrovert kind of job when you're on the phones and the radio, and I know it's an extra struggle for folks who are introverted. So I always tell introverts in my sessions and classes, to be this person for somebody else, you don't have to become an extrovert. If you're left-handed, you don't have to become right-handed. Like, you don't have to become something that you aren't. But what you are, who you are at work is already enough. You've already got a defined role and impact at your work, especially if you're a veteran dispatcher. Veteran dispatchers are truly the pulse of every center. Everyone. How it is to work in a center can be almost directly tied to how their veteran dispatchers are. And there are a lot of other things going on. Please, I'm not blaming bad things on veteran dispatchers, but what I'm suggesting is in centers that are well adjusted with great culture, it's because the veteran dispatchers are doing the things we're talking about here today, Cherie. They're not saying that. Not my circus, not my monkeys. That ain't my job description. Instead, they're reaching out, leaning out, and helping other people and understanding that they have an impact. I've been doing this for 15 years, they may say to themselves, and somebody who's been doing it for 2 may look to me as an example, and I'm going to lean into that. I don't fully understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it, and sometimes I have as many questions as them, but I understand that impact. So I would say to veteran dispatchers out there, and I mentioned this earlier, you don't have to embrace your impact. You don't even have to agree that you have it. But I'm telling you, and I know Cherie is a long timer in this industry, will tell you the same thing. Listen to your elders, damn it. You have an impact, and it's sizable. And you can turn that impact into something that becomes something pretty special for someone who desperately needs it. And again, we're not doing this for the spotlight. We're not doing this because you want to hear how great you are, but just by being a little more intentional about talking to someone you don't normally talk to, acknowledging someone who doesn't get acknowledged by many people, by virtue of the fact that you've been doing this a long time, you're making an impact on them that's going to last. I remember a long timer when I was brand new who we essentially didn't talk to because he was a long timer, great at what he did. We were all intimidated by him. At the same time, we were in awe of him. And I remember one day I was really struggling in training, which is honestly the story of my first 3 years in dispatch every day. And he didn't really talk to new people much. I don't think he even knew our names, but he walked by my console after a break and he set a soda down for me. And, in hindsight, I realized it was a Diet Fresca and it was probably a message, and we can get into that. But at the time, I read it as, oh my God, he's acknowledging me. This is him telling me you got this, even though he may have probably just got a Diet Fresca out of the machine when he was trying to get something else, and he gave it to the flunky with the bad hair. But I can't tell you how that lifted me up for the next 6 months. Just something that silly, that small. So you don't have to move mountains, veterans, to change the game for people who need it. Please don't forget that.
So if dispatchers listening have their own unsung hero, I pretty sure I know what you're going to say here because we have talked about it, but just these last messages, before we close here, what would you encourage them to do about it?
Well, first of all, acknowledge it and just understand that this person is pretty special. They didn't have to do this. None of the things we're talking about today are necessarily in anybody's job description, as we've mentioned. And sometimes, especially if you've been doing this job for a long time, you want to come into work with as little drama as possible, do your job, talk to as few people as you have to, and go home. That's a natural instinct and reflex when you've been doing 911 for 15, 20 years. But for those folks who, despite that urge, and I know they have it, determined to still be something else, it just makes them extraordinarily special. So if you have that person, I just, again, as we have throughout this talk today, I want to encourage you to make sure they know it. Even if they kind of turn away from you or they're embarrassed by it, or maybe you two haven't really had that sort of emotional back and forth. It doesn't have to be emotional. You have to hug them or cry. If you are a hugger and they are a hugger, I encourage a hug. But if not, that's, let's watch the HR stuff here. But tell them, just thank them, just little things. Dispatchers don't expect thanks, but when we get it, it's still pretty special, isn't it? You ever get that call from somebody who's actually sober and actually needs real help and you're able to help them? And those rare occasions when they thank you, like I can remember them. Throughout my career, I don't remember much, a lot of blur, but I remember every little thanks I got. So while I'm quick to tell you as a dispatcher, I don't need thanks. I'm not in this for thanks. When I got thanks, it mattered. It mattered particularly from peers, cops, folks out on the radio, coworkers. So if you have that person, I promise you, saying thanks to them and acknowledging their role is going to deeply resonate for them in a way that not only do they deserve, but they probably need.
And I just want to add to that. I had a supervisor many, many years retired. And I did reach out to her. This was a few years ago, and let her know that she had made a difference in my career. And even then, even after she had been retired for many years, it really made a difference for her just to let her know. So I I ditto what Kris said. It makes a difference to that person. It's just nice to hear. We work in such a negative environment, hearing all so bad, and it's nice to hear that. Even like again, what Kris just said. I don't want to hear that. It is it is nice and humbling, and they may stutter and stammer and
Hmm.
yeah, all right, well, thanks. But inside, it will make a difference.
I mean, it absolutely will, and it's a
Yeah,
difference they deserve to have made. They deserve to hear that they've made, rather, and you can be the person that just lets them know that, and that can be their receipts, and that can kind of put a bow on that career for them. So tell them, do it. It's your homework
tell them.
assignment. Go do it today.
Right. And so that may be already the answer to my very last question for Kris today. Kris, what's the one thing you hope dispatchers take away from this conversation about the people who saved us?
That it doesn't take any big effort for you to, at least at times, make that kind of difference for the people that are around you at work. And when you think about, and I hope you've thought about today, that person or maybe people who have impacted you, like Cherie and I have discussed today, and when you feel what that makes you feel inside, how important they are to you, that I hope you'll understand that even if you don't aspire to be that person for everyone all the time, you can be that person for others times that they need it. And maybe at the end of a long career, they're going to be on a podcast with Cherie and say, you know what? Listening to that podcast that day, I realized that, I'm a little icy, a little distant from people, but by being a little kinder than maybe I'm expected to be and caring a little bit more than maybe is in my job description, it's kept people here and people that maybe wouldn't have stayed here. So again, no heavy lifting required, no sweat to work up. Just reach out to somebody this week that you haven't talked to in a long time, or maybe that new person who's kind of alone in it and they're not really talking to many folks. Maybe you can be the bridge from that awkward time in their career to something really special for them. Give it a shot. It's worth it, and it doesn't require you to do a whole lot. I promise you it's worth it. Do it.
Thanks so much, Kris. Really enjoyed having you here today. It's always, I always enjoy listening to everything you have to say.
Cherie, the pleasure is always mine. I love that this is our second time together. I can't wait for the next time. Hopefully, in a year, we'll do it again. But it's always a joy to not only talk to you and the folks at Equiture, but to get a chance to talk to folks out and about this crazy profession of dispatch that we've all chosen or fallen into. It's always a joy.
Thank you. And for our audience, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and contact me, C. Bartram, Bartram, at equiture.com. And if you're interested in ever being on our podcast or joining us on a webinar or even instructing a course, again, just reach out to me and we'll see what we can do together. It's been great having you here, and I look forward to seeing you at our next podcast. Thanks, everyone. Have a super great day.